I'm Amber Mitchell, 34, and I never thought my own brother would empty our family savings account of $45,000. The money I'd saved for years as a single mom to give my son Noah a stable home, gone overnight. When Kyle disappeared, I was devastated, but my quiet 12-year-old boy surprised me with skills I never knew he had. Trusting family was my biggest mistake, but underestimating my son was his. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how a middle schooler outsmarted a grown man who thought he'd gotten away clean. Portland has never been an easy city to afford as a single parent. For the past 8 years, I've worked as an administrative assistant at Morgan and Hayes law firm, pinching pennies and sacrificing luxuries to save for a modest home for Noah and me. Our 2-bedroom apartment on the east side had always been a temporary stop. At least that's what I told myself every time the rent increased. Noah isn't your typical 7th grader. While other kids his age are glued to video games or sports, my son spends hours coding on his laptop, solving complex puzzles, and reading books well beyond his years. He's quiet and observant, sometimes eerily so. His teachers often remark that he notices things other children miss. When he was 10, he built a rudimentary security system for our apartment using parts from an old webcam and some coding knowledge he'd taught himself. That's my son, brilliant in his own introverted way. Then there's my brother Kyle. 3 years younger than me at 31, Kyle has always been the definition of charismatic but unreliable. Growing up, he was the golden child, handsome, athletic, and able to talk his way out of any situation. But as an adult, he bounced between jobs like they were hot potatoes. Bartender 1 month, sales rep the next, then construction worker, then rideshare driver. Nothing stuck because Kyle was always looking for the next best thing. Despite his flaws, I loved my brother. We'd been through a lot together after our parents died in a car accident 10 years ago. He was the only close family I had left. And for Noah's sake, I wanted to maintain that connection. Kids need family, I reasoned. 8 months ago, Kyle called me late on a Tuesday night. His voice sounded different, more mature, more grounded. He'd gotten a job as a financial advisor at a reputable company downtown. He'd been sober for 3 months after quietly struggling with alcohol for years. He was seeing a therapist. He was changing his life. I was genuinely proud of him. 3 weeks later, when he broke up with his girlfriend Jessica and needed a place to stay temporarily, I offered our spare room. Noah was hesitant. He'd always been slightly wary of his uncle's larger-than-life personality, but I assured him it would only be for a few months until Kyle found his own place. He's family, Noah, I explained as we prepared the spare room. Sometimes people need a second chance. I know, Mom, he replied quietly, arranging the pillows on the bed. I just hope he doesn't mess things up this time. I should have listened to my son's instincts. The first few weeks with Kyle were an adjustment. He left dirty dishes in the sink and came home late sometimes. But he paid rent on time, bought groceries occasionally, and even started taking Noah to school some mornings when I had early meetings. By month 3, he was cooking dinner once a week and had become a seemingly permanent fixture in our little family unit. You know what, Amber? Kyle said one evening as we sat on the balcony after Noah had gone to bed. I never thought I'd say this, but I think I'm finally getting my life together. I smiled, sipping my tea. It looks that way. I'm really proud of you. I've been saving, too, he continued, for my own place. But it's tough in this market. That's when the idea came to me. What if we combined our savings for a while? I've been putting away for a down payment for years. Together, we might be able to afford something sooner. You could rent a room from us until you're ready to move on. His eyes lit up. Are you serious? That would be incredible. The next day, we opened a joint savings account. I transferred my $45,000, every penny I'd saved over 8 years, into it. Kyle added $12,000 of his own. We set a goal. By the end of the year, we'd have enough for a down payment on a modest house in a decent school district. That evening, Noah found me looking at real estate listings online. Are we really going to buy a house with Uncle Kyle? He asked, his brow furrowed. Just until he finds his own place, I explained. It'll help us get into a house faster. Noah sat beside me, staring at the laptop screen. Do you really trust him with all your money, Mom? I closed the laptop and turned to face my son. Kyle has changed, Noah. People can change. And he's family. Noah nodded slowly, but the concern never left his eyes. If you say so. For 3 more months, everything seemed perfect. Kyle got a promotion. I received a small raise. Our joint savings grew steadily. I started touring open houses on weekends, sometimes bringing Noah along to see his potential future home. I'd point out features, a backyard where he could hang out, a space for a proper desk for his computer projects, his own bathroom. For the first time in years, our dream felt within reach. If only I'd paid attention to the signs. The unexplained late nights Kyle started pulling again. The mysterious phone calls he'd take outside. The way he'd change the subject whenever I brought up specific houses I was interested in. But I was too caught up in the possibility of finally providing the stable home I'd promised Noah for years. Once we have our own place, I told Noah as we walked through a modest 3-bedroom house just 10 minutes from his school, everything will be different. No more rent increases. No more worrying about leases. We'll have something that's ours. Noah squeezed my hand. That sounds nice, Mom. I didn't realize then that I was building our future on quicksand. Monday mornings were always hectic in our household. This particular Monday in April seemed no different at first. I woke up at 5:45 a.m., started the coffee maker, and hopped in the shower. By 6:30, I was knocking on Noah's door to make sure he was getting ready for school. Noah, time to get up, I called through the door. Big math test today, remember? I heard a muffled response and continued with my routine, making breakfast and packing Noah's lunch. It wasn't until 6:45 that I realized I hadn't heard Kyle stirring. He usually left for work around 7:15, and his shower could be heard through our thin apartment walls. Noah, is your uncle up? I asked as my son emerged from his room, fully dressed, but still sleepy-eyed. Haven't seen him, Noah mumbled, settling at the kitchen table. I walked to Kyle's room and knocked. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. A strange feeling settled in my stomach as I turned the handle and pushed the door open. The room was empty. Not just empty of Kyle, but empty of his things. The closet door stood open, hangers dangling without clothes. The dresser drawers were partially pulled out, clearly emptied in haste. His laptop was gone from the desk. Even the framed photo of our parents that had sat on his nightstand was missing. Kyle. I called out, as if he might materialize from thin air. The apartment remained silent except for the sound of Noah eating cereal in the kitchen. I pulled out my phone and dialed Kyle's number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again with the same result. My heart began to race as I returned to the kitchen. Noah, finish getting ready. We need to leave a little early today. Why? What's wrong? Noah looked up, immediately sensing my distress. Your uncle isn't here. His things are gone. I tried to keep my voice steady. Noah put down his spoon slowly. All of them. Yes. I grabbed my purse and pulled out my phone again. I need to check something. With trembling fingers, I opened my banking app. I held my breath as I entered my password and navigated to the joint savings account. Balance, $0. The room seemed to tilt sideways. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. Mom? Noah's voice sounded far away. He took it, I whispered, staring at the screen. He took all of it. The money? Noah asked, his voice small. I nodded, unable to speak. $45,000. 8 years of careful saving. Gone. The next few hours passed in a blur. I called in sick to work for the first time in years. I drove Noah to school after assuring him I would figure things out. Then I spent the morning making frantic calls. I called Kyle's workplace only to discover he'd quit his job 2 weeks ago. I called mutual friends no one had seen or heard from him. I called Jessica, his ex-girlfriend, who seemed genuinely shocked at what he'd done. I'm so sorry, Amber, she said, her voice tight with anger. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but this is why we broke up. He was always secretive about money. I caught him using my credit card once. By noon, I was sitting across from Officer Daniels at the Portland Police Department, filing a report. His expression remained professionally neutral as I explained the situation, though I detected a hint of pity in his eyes. "And you willingly added him to your savings account?" he asked, looking up from his computer. "Yes. He's my brother. I trusted him." The words tasted bitter in my mouth. Officer Daniels sighed. "Ms. Mitchell, I understand you're upset, and rightfully so. But legally speaking, this is complicated. When you create a joint account, both parties have equal legal access to the funds." "He stole from me," I insisted, my voice breaking. "In the eyes of the law, it's difficult to classify this as theft when you authorized him as a joint account holder. Banks consider that implied consent for either party to withdraw funds." He leaned forward. "That said, we can certainly take this report and investigate. But I want to be honest with you. These situations are often treated as civil matters rather than criminal ones." I left the police station feeling hollow. The betrayal cut deeper than the financial loss. Kyle wasn't just some stranger who had scammed me. He was my little brother. He had sat at our dinner table for 6 months. He had helped Noah with homework. He had looked me in the eye and talked about our future in the house we would buy together. When I picked Noah up from school that afternoon, I tried to put on a brave face. But children, especially observant ones like my son, can see right through adult pretenses. "Did you find Uncle Kyle?" he asked as soon as he got in the car. "No, honey. Not yet." I focused on the road, blinking back tears. "He's not coming back, is he?" I pulled over to the side of the road and turned to face my son. "Noah, I need to tell you something difficult. Uncle Kyle took our money. All of it. The money for our house." Noah's expression didn't change much, just a slight tightening around his eyes. "I thought maybe that happened. You've been crying." I reached out to touch his cheek. "I'm so sorry, Noah. I know how much you wanted that house." "It's not your fault, Mom," he said with a maturity that broke my heart all over again. "Uncle Kyle is the one who did something wrong." "Yes, but I let him in. I trusted him with our future." A tear escaped despite my best efforts. Noah unbuckled his seatbelt and leaned over to hug me awkwardly across the center console. "We'll figure it out. I'll help you." I held on to my son, this remarkable child who was offering me comfort when I should have been the strong one. In that moment, I felt both profound failure and immense gratitude. "I don't know how we're going to fix this," I admitted. Noah pulled back and met my gaze with unusual intensity. "I do. I'm good with computers, remember? People leave digital footprints everywhere. Uncle Kyle isn't as smart as he thinks he is." I managed a weak smile, appreciating his attempt to make me feel better. "It's not that simple, sweetheart." "Yes, it is," Noah insisted. "He can't just disappear. Nobody can anymore." I started the car again, assuming Noah was simply trying to be supportive in his 12-year-old way. I had no idea that he was actually making me a promise, one that he intended to keep. The financial realities hit hard and fast. Our rent was due in 10 days. The car payment would process automatically from my checking account at the end of the week. Noah's summer camp deposit was non-refundable, but the remaining balance was coming up. These were all expenses I had comfortably managed before, but that was when I had my emergency fund to fall back on. The emergency fund that now showed a balance of 0. The morning after discovering Kyle's betrayal, I sat down with all our bills spread across the kitchen table. With just my regular checking account and the small amount in my 401k that I couldn't touch without significant penalties, the math was grim. We could make it through the next month, maybe 2, but without that savings cushion, any unexpected expense would topple our precarious financial situation. At 9 a.m., I walked into First National Bank and asked to speak with a manager. Sarah Thompson, a woman about my age with sympathetic eyes, listened as I explained what had happened. "I understand how devastating this is, Ms. Mitchell," she said, "but unfortunately, from a banking perspective, there isn't much we can do. When you created a joint account, you authorized Mr. Mitchell to have full access to those funds. But he clearly stole the money," I argued, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can't the transaction be traced? Can't the bank freeze his new account if he deposited it somewhere?" Sarah shook her head. "Banking privacy laws prevent us from being able to tell you where those funds might have been transferred. And without a court order, we can't freeze anyone's accounts. Have you filed a police report?" Yes, but they didn't seem hopeful. She reached across her desk and touched my hand briefly. I would suggest consulting with an attorney. This may need to be handled as a civil matter. That afternoon, I swallowed my pride and approached Jason Martinez, one of the attorneys at my firm. He specialized in family law and had always been kind to me. I caught him between meetings and asked if I could have 5 minutes of his time. In his office, I gave him the abbreviated version of what had happened. His expression grew increasingly troubled as I spoke. "Amber, I'm so sorry," he said when I finished. "What your brother did was morally reprehensible, but legally, it's a gray area. Since you willingly added him to the account, it becomes difficult to prove intent to defraud. So he just gets away with it." My voice cracked. "Not necessarily. You could file a civil suit against him for breach of verbal contract if you had an agreement about the purpose of the funds. But first, you'd need to find him." Jason leaned forward. "Do you have any idea where he might have gone?" I shook my head. "His phone goes straight to voicemail. He quit his job 2 weeks ago without telling me. Nobody has heard from him." Jason jotted something on a notepad and handed it to me. "This is the name of a private investigator I've worked with. He's good at finding people who don't want to be found. I can't make any promises, but it might be worth a conversation." I looked at the paper, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall in my workplace. "I can't afford a private investigator right now. Let me make a call. He owes me a favor." Jason's kindness nearly undid my fragile composure. That evening, I made the hardest phone call to my closest friend Laura. We'd been friends since college, and though she wasn't wealthy by any means, I knew she was more financially stable than I was. "I need to borrow some money," I admitted after explaining the situation. "Just for the short term. For rent and basics until I can figure this out." "Oh my God, Amber." "Of course," Laura said without hesitation. "How much do you need?" $3,000 would get us through the next month. The amount felt enormous to ask for, but it was the minimum we needed to stay afloat. "I'll transfer it right now. And I'm coming over tomorrow with groceries." No arguments. After putting Noah to bed that night, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at my laptop screen. I'd opened a document titled Financial Recovery Plan, but it remained blank. The cursor blinked mockingly at me as minutes ticked by. Eventually, I closed the laptop and put my head in my hands. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford in the days that followed. I'd lie awake calculating and recalculating our expenses, trying to find corners to cut from an already tight budget. I lost 5 pounds in the first week simply because my appetite had vanished. The constant anxiety manifested physically: tension headaches, stomach issues, a persistent twitch under my left eye. At work, I struggled to maintain my usual efficiency. Michael Hayes, the senior partner and my direct supervisor, called me into his office on Friday afternoon. "Amber, is everything all right?" he asked after I'd fumbled a simple filing task for the 3rd time that week. "You don't seem like yourself lately." I considered offering some vague explanation, but the stress and exhaustion had worn down my defenses. To my horror, I burst into tears right there in his office. Between sobs, I told him everything: Kyle's betrayal, the empty bank account, my fears about providing for Noah. Michael listened without interrupting, occasionally passing me tissues from the box on his desk. "I'm so sorry," I said when I finally regained composure. "This is completely unprofessional. I promise it won't affect my work going forward." Michael regarded me thoughtfully. "Amber, you've been with this firm for 8 years. You've never once brought personal problems to work. If this has affected your performance, it must be serious indeed." He paused. "I'm not just your boss. I'd like to think we're also colleagues who respect each other. Let us help." By the following Monday, the partners had approved an advance on my salary and a small raise that had apparently been in discussion before this crisis. It wasn't enough to replace what Kyle had taken, but it was enough to breathe. Meanwhile, Noah had become increasingly withdrawn. He spent most evenings in his room with his laptop. When I asked what he was working on, he'd simply say homework or a project. His teacher, Mrs. Wilson, called me midweek. "I wanted to check in about Noah," she said. "He seems distracted in class, and he fell asleep during math yesterday. Is everything okay at home?" I gave her a sanitized version of our situation, emphasizing that we were working through it. I see, she replied. That explains a lot. He's been researching some unusual topics during computer lab. The technology teacher mentioned he was looking up information about banking systems and digital tracking. Something cold settled in my stomach. What exactly was he researching? I'm not entirely sure. Mr. Patel just mentioned it in passing. He said Noah told him it was for a creative writing project about a detective story. That night, I knocked on Noah's door after dinner. He was hunched over his laptop, his face illuminated by the blue light of the screen. He quickly minimized whatever he was working on when I entered. Hey, buddy. Can we talk for a minute? Noah nodded, closing his laptop. Mrs. Wilson called today. She said you've been tired at school. I sat on the edge of his bed. And that you've been researching some interesting topics in computer lab. A flicker of something guilt? Defiance crossed his face. It's just for a project. Noah, I know things are stressful right now, but I'm the adult. It's my job to fix this situation, not yours. You need to focus on being a kid and doing well in school. He looked down at his hands. But I can help. I'm good at finding information. What kind of information are you trying to find? I asked gently. Noah was silent for a long moment. Then he opened his laptop again. I didn't want to tell you until I was sure. He pulled up a folder labeled Kyle and turned the screen toward me. I think I know how to find Uncle Kyle. My first instinct was to close the laptop and tell Noah to forget about Kyle. This wasn't a burden for a 12-year-old to carry. But the determined look in my son's eyes stopped me. What is all this? I asked, scanning the screen filled with documents, screenshots, and what appeared to be a crude digital map. Uncle Kyle's digital footprint, Noah said, his voice gaining confidence. Everyone leaves traces online, Mom. Especially people who aren't careful. I moved closer to get a better look. How did you even begin to find this information? Remember when Uncle Kyle's laptop had that virus a few months ago? He asked me to fix it. Noah clicked through to a subfolder. I set up his system recovery, but I also noticed he never logged out of anything. He saved all his passwords in his browser. A mixture of pride and concern washed over me. Noah, accessing someone's accounts without permission isn't exactly. I didn't hack anything, he interrupted. His old laptop is still here. He left it when he took his new one. All his information was still saved on it. I just looked at what was already there. I wasn't entirely convinced of the ethics, but my curiosity overrode my concerns. And what did you find? Noah pulled up an email confirmation. This came 3 weeks ago. It's a lease application approval for an apartment in Seattle. He used his real name, but a different email address I found in his browser history. My heart began to race. Seattle? That's only 3 hours away. And look at this. Noah opened another file, showing credit card transactions. He's been using his card in the Belltown neighborhood consistently for the past week. Coffee shops, restaurants, grocery stores. How did you access his credit card statements? I asked, now genuinely concerned about my son's methods. I didn't have to. He set up email notifications for purchases, and all those emails were still syncing to his old laptop. Noah continued clicking through his evidence. And he's been active on LinkedIn with a slightly different profile. Kyle Mitchell is now Kyle M. Bennett, using Mom's maiden name. He's listed himself as a financial consultant with a company I can't find any real information about. I think he made it up. I sat back, stunned by both the information and my son's resourcefulness. Noah, this is... I don't even know what to say. There's more. Noah pulled up a banking website. He opened a new account at Pacific Northwest Bank. I can't see the balance, but I can see that it exists because the welcome email came through on his old laptop. How long have you been doing this research? I asked. Since the day we found out. Noah looked at me, his expression serious beyond his years. I knew the police wouldn't do much. Adults think kids don't understand, but I watch true crime shows too. I know how things work. I reached out and closed the laptop gently. I'm impressed by your skills, Noah. Truly. But I'm also worried about you spending so much time on this. And some of what you're doing might be legally questionable. I didn't break into anything, Mom. I just observed. That's not illegal. He had clearly thought this through. And I did it because I hate seeing you so sad. You've been crying at night. I can hear you. The realization that my son had been aware of my private moments of breakdown hit me hard. I had tried so hard to be strong for him. What do you think we should do with this information? I asked, deciding to treat him as a partner rather than a child who needed protection. We go to Seattle, he said without hesitation. We confront Uncle Kyle and get our money back. It's not that simple. He could deny everything. He could run again when he sees us. He won't. Noah reopened his laptop and showed me one last piece of evidence. I found his new phone number in an account verification text. And I've been tracking his routine through his food delivery apps. He orders dinner every night between 6:30 and 7 o'clock. He doesn't go out much on weeknights. We can catch him at his apartment. I stared at my son, this child who had apparently developed detective skills while I wasn't looking. Part of me was disturbed by how deeply he had dug into Kyle's digital life. Another part, the desperate part that needed that money back, was impressed and grateful. Even if we find him, there's no guarantee he still has the money or that he'll give it back, I reasoned. We have leverage, Noah insisted. I've documented everything. How he quit his job but pretended to go to work. How he researched untraceable money transfers and living off the grid on his browser. If he's trying to start a new life with a fake company in Seattle, he won't want his past catching up with him. I took a deep breath. Let me think about this. What you've found is incredibly valuable, but confronting Kyle could be dangerous. He's obviously not the person we thought he was. Noah nodded solemnly. Just don't wait too long. He's already cleared out his food delivery apps. He might be preparing to move again. That night, I called Jason Martinez at home. I explained what Noah had discovered, carefully framing it as information we came across rather than detailing my son's digital detective work. This changes things, Jason said. With a specific location, we can have him served with legal papers. But honestly, Amber, direct confrontation might be faster than the legal system in this case. If you can get him to admit what he did and agree to repayment, we can draft a promissory note on the spot. You think I should go to Seattle? If you do, don't go alone. And document everything. Record the conversation if Washington law allows it. It's a two-party consent state, so you'd need to inform him he's being recorded. After hanging up, I sat in the dark living room for hours, weighing our options. The legal route could take months or years, with no guarantee of success. Direct confrontation carried its own risks, but it might be our only chance at a quick resolution. By morning, I had made my decision. I requested Friday off work and told Noah we would be taking a trip to Seattle. Really? His face lit up. We're going to find him? We're going to try, I clarified. But we need to be prepared for this not to work. And we need to be careful. Your uncle has already shown he's willing to hurt us. He won't be expecting us, Noah said confidently. And he definitely won't be expecting me to have tracked him down. Over the next 2 days, we prepared carefully. Noah created a detailed map of Kyle's movements based on his digital activity. I spoke with Laura, who insisted on coming with us for safety. I withdrew the little cash I could from my checking account. And Jason Martinez prepared a promissory note and a script of exactly what I should say from a legal standpoint. As we packed the car on Friday morning, I looked at Noah, this child who had somehow become my partner in this bizarre situation. Are you absolutely sure about this? It's not too late to let the adults handle it. Noah zipped up his backpack containing his laptop and evidence folder. I'm sure, Mom. Uncle Kyle thought he could just walk away from what he did to us. He needs to learn he was wrong. With those words, we began the 3-hour drive to Seattle, following a trail of digital breadcrumbs left by a man who thought he had disappeared. The drive to Seattle was filled with an electric tension. Noah sat in the back seat with his laptop open, occasionally updating us on Kyle's recent digital activities. Laura drove while I stared out the window, rehearsing what I would say when we finally came face to face with my brother. He ordered coffee at the same place again this morning, Noah reported about an hour into our journey. Corner Brew on Bell Street. It's 2 blocks from his apartment. How can you possibly know that? Laura asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. His rewards app updated. Noah replied matter-of-factly. 5 more points added at 7:42 a.m. Laura shot me a look that said, "Your kid is either a genius or terrifying. Maybe both." The landscape changed from Portland's urban sprawl to Washington's evergreen-lined highways. Under different circumstances, this might have been a pleasant road trip. Instead, every mile marker brought us closer to a confrontation I was simultaneously dreading and impatient to have. What if he's not there? I asked, voicing one of my many concerns. His location services are still active on his weather app, Noah responded. He's in Seattle. What if he doesn't have the money anymore? The bank welcome email came with account notifications. There was a large deposit the day after he left. Noah had an answer for everything. He might have spent some, but not all of it. Not in less than 2 weeks. What if he refuses to talk to us? This time, it was Laura who answered. Then we call the police and show them everything Noah has found. They might have dismissed you before, but with an actual location and evidence of premeditation, they'll have to take it more seriously. We arrived in Seattle just after noon, stopping for a quick lunch at a drive-thru before heading to the address Noah had identified as Kyle's new residence. It was a modern apartment building in Belltown, sleek, anonymous, and undoubtedly expensive. The kind of place someone might choose if they suddenly came into a substantial sum of money. He lives on the 4th floor, Noah said, consulting his notes. Apartment 412. How do we get in? Laura asked, eyeing the secure entrance with its intercom system. We wait, I decided. Noah, what time does he usually come home from, whatever he's pretending to do all day? Based on his food delivery patterns, between 5:30 and 6 p.m. That gave us about 5 hours to wait. We found a coffee shop across the street with a clear view of the building's entrance. Laura and I ordered drinks while Noah set up his laptop at a window table. This is surreal, Laura commented, stirring her latte. I feel like we're in a stakeout scene from a movie. Except in movies, the bad guys usually have guns, not my child's college fund, I replied grimly. The hours crawled by. Noah alternated between monitoring his digital tracking and playing games on his phone. Laura made business calls, stepping outside occasionally to maintain privacy. I sat, watching the building entrance, jumping slightly every time someone who remotely resembled Kyle approached. At 4:45 p.m., we moved to Laura's car, parked with a view of both the front and back entrances to the apartment building. The waiting was excruciating. Every minute stretched my nerves tighter. There, Noah suddenly exclaimed from the back seat at 5:37 p.m. I followed his pointing finger and felt my heart leap into my throat. It was Kyle, but not quite the Kyle I remembered. His usually short brown hair was now bleached blonde and styled differently. He wore sunglasses and clothes I didn't recognize. More expensive looking than his usual attire. But his walk, the slight slouch of his shoulders, was unmistakable. That's him, I confirmed, my voice barely a whisper. We watched as he entered the building, shopping bag in hand. Now what? Laura asked. I took a deep breath. Now we confront him. We waited 15 minutes, enough time for him to get settled, but not so long that he might leave again. Then, with Noah's backpack of evidence and my heart pounding in my ears, we approached the building. A resident was exiting as we arrived, and Laura smoothly caught the door before it closed, allowing us entrance without having to use the intercom. We took the elevator to the 4th floor in silence. Noah's hand found mine, and I squeezed it reassuringly. Apartment 412 was at the end of the hallway. I stood before the door, momentarily frozen. Mom? Noah whispered. Are you okay? I nodded, swallowed hard, and knocked. There was movement inside, footsteps approaching. Then silence, as if someone was looking through the peephole. I stared directly at where I imagined Kyle's eye would be. The door swung open, and there he was. Kyle's expression transformed from casual curiosity to shock to panic in the span of seconds. Amber, he stammered, instinctively trying to close the door again. Laura was faster, wedging her foot in the doorway. I don't think so, asshole. Kyle's eyes darted between us, then landed on Noah. Something like shame flickered across his features before hardening into defiance. What are you doing here? He demanded. How did you find me? Are you going to invite us in? I asked coldly, or would you prefer to have this conversation in the hallway where all your new neighbors can hear about how you stole $45,000 from your sister and 12-year-old nephew? His face paled. After a moment's hesitation, he stepped back, allowing us entry. The apartment was sparsely furnished, but with high-end pieces, a leather sofa, a glass dining table, a large flat-screen TV still with the protective film on it. The shopping bag he'd carried and contained a designer jacket with the tags still attached. My money was clearly being put to use. "You've been busy," I commented, gesturing around the apartment. "Amber, this isn't what it looks like," Kyle began, running a hand through his newly blonde hair. "Really? Because it looks like you emptied our joint savings account and disappeared without a word. It looks like you're living it up in Seattle while Noah and I struggle to pay rent." "I can explain." "Save it," I interrupted. "We know everything, Kyle. We know you quit your job 2 weeks before you left. We know you researched how to disappear and transfer money without being traced. We know you've created a fake consulting business and changed your name to Kyle Bennett." His eyes widened. "How could you possibly know all that?" Noah stepped forward, opening his backpack. "I tracked your digital footprint, Uncle Kyle." He pulled out his laptop. "Every website you visited. Every app you used. Every email you received." Kyle stared at his nephew in disbelief. That's not possible. You're just a kid." "A kid who is smart enough to look at the laptop you left behind," Noah replied, his voice steady. "The one where you stayed logged into everything and saved all your passwords. You went through my computer." Kyle's shock was turning to anger. "That's invasion of privacy." Laura laughed without humor. "That's rich coming from the guy who stole his sister's life savings." "I was going to pay you back," Kyle insisted, turning to me. "It's just, I got into some trouble. Gambling debts. They were threatening me. So your solution was to steal from us." I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. "You lived in our home for 6 months, Kyle. You sat at our dinner table. You helped Noah with his homework. And all that time, you were planning to take everything from us." "It wasn't like that," he protested weakly. "It was a moment of desperation. I was scared. So were we," I shot back. "When we discovered all our money was gone. When I had to borrow from friends to pay rent. When I had to explain to Noah why we couldn't buy the house I promised him." Kyle sank onto the sofa, head in his hands. "I'm sorry. I really am. But the money, most of it's gone. I had debts to pay." Noah had been quietly setting up his laptop. Now he turned the screen toward Kyle. "That's not true. You deposited $43,000 into your new account at Pacific Northwest Bank 12 days ago. There have been withdrawals, but the current balance is still over $32,000. Kyle's head snapped up. "How the hell do you?" "Your account confirmation emails," Noah explained calmly. "They were still syncing to your old laptop. Every transaction gets an alert." A new voice entered the conversation. "Kyle? What's going on? Who are these people?" We all turned to see a woman standing in the hallway leading to what I presumed was the bedroom. She was pretty, in her late 20s, looking confused and concerned. "Taylor," Kyle said, clearly flustered. This is my sister Amber. And my nephew Noah. And their friend." "You never mentioned a sister," Taylor said, stepping further into the room. "Or a nephew." "He never mentions a lot of things," I replied. "Like the fact that he stole $45,000 from us before moving here." Taylor's face drained of color. "What?" "Kyle, is that true?" "It's complicated," he muttered. "No, it's not," Noah interjected, pulling up more files on his laptop. "It's actually very simple. He planned it for weeks. Look." He turned the screen toward Taylor, showing the browser history he had recovered. Searches for "how to disappear," "untraceable money transfers," "starting over with new identity." Taylor backed away from Kyle as if he had suddenly become dangerous. "I've only known you for 2 weeks," she said quietly. "Who are you, really?" "Taylor, please," Kyle stood, reaching for her. "I can explain everything. I think I've heard enough." She grabbed her purse from a side table. "I'll be staying with my sister tonight. Don't call me." After Taylor left, the apartment fell into a heavy silence. Kyle stood in the middle of the room, looking deflated and cornered. Here's what's going to happen, I finally said, my voice surprisingly steady. You're going to transfer the remaining money back to me. Today. Now. And you're going to sign a legally binding agreement to pay back the rest. And if I refuse? A flash of the old Kyle. The manipulator, the charmer who thought he could talk his way out of anything. Noah clicked something on his laptop, and a recording began to play. Kyle's voice from moments ago. I was going to pay you back. I got into some trouble. Gambling debts. It was a moment of desperation. Washington is a two-party consent state for recordings, Kyle said smugly. That's not admissible. We're not in court, I replied. But this recording, along with all the evidence Noah has collected about your premeditated theft, would make a compelling case for the police. And your new employer. And anyone else you're trying to reinvent yourself with. You're bluffing. Noah pulled out his phone and pressed another button. A small red light illuminated on what I now realized was a hidden camera in his jacket zipper. I'm not bluffing, Uncle Kyle, he said quietly. I'm live streaming this entire conversation to a private cloud server. If anything happens to us, or if you don't cooperate, it all goes public. To the police, to your new girlfriend, to everyone. I looked at my son in astonishment. This level of preparation hadn't been part of our discussions. Kyle stared at Noah for a long moment, then laughed, a hollow, defeated sound. Outsmarted by my 12-year-old nephew. That's a new low, even for me. He walked to the dining table where his laptop sat, opened it, and began typing. I'll transfer what's left. But I really don't have the full amount anymore. Then you'll pay back the difference over time, I said, pulling out the promissory note Jason had prepared. With interest. As Kyle made the transfer and signed the legal document, I felt no triumph, only a profound sadness. This was my brother, my only close blood relative besides Noah. And our relationship was now reduced to this, a financial transaction, a legal obligation, the aftermath of a betrayal. Is this what you wanted? Kyle asked as he handed back the signed document. To humiliate me? To destroy my fresh start? No, I answered honestly. What I wanted was a brother I could trust. What I wanted was the family Noah deserves. What I wanted was the house we were saving for together. But you took all of that away, not me. Kyle had no response to that. As we prepared to leave, Noah paused at the door. I looked up to you, Uncle Kyle, he said, his voice small for the first time since we'd arrived. I thought you were cool. Kyle couldn't meet his nephew's eyes. I'm sorry, Noah. I really am. Sorry doesn't fix what you broke, Noah replied, with a wisdom beyond his years. Then he turned and walked out the door. I followed my son, leaving Kyle alone in his half-furnished apartment with his regrets and $32,000 less than he had when the day began. The 3-hour drive back to Portland was emotionally exhausting. Noah fell asleep in the back seat almost immediately, the adrenaline crash hitting him hard. Laura drove while I stared at my phone, watching in disbelief as the bank notification confirmed the transfer of $32,179.46 into my account. I still can't believe it worked, I whispered, not wanting to wake Noah. I can't believe he actually had most of the money. I can't believe your son pulled off an operation that would impress the FBI, Laura replied, keeping her eyes on the rainy highway. Amber, you realize Noah is basically a superhero, right? I glanced back at my sleeping child, his face peaceful now that our mission was accomplished. He shouldn't have had to be. He's 12. He should be worried about video games and math homework, not tracking down his criminal uncle. Maybe, but he stepped up when you needed him most. That says a lot about how you've raised him. We arrived home late that night. I carried my still sleeping son to his bed, removing only his shoes before tucking him in. As I brushed his hair away from his forehead, he stirred slightly. Did we really get the money back? He mumbled, half asleep. Yes, honey. We really did. Thanks to you. Good. His eyes drifted closed again. I knew we would. The next morning, I called Jason Martinez to report our success and next steps. He was impressed, but concerned about our confrontation approach. You're lucky it didn't go sideways, he cautioned. But I'm glad you got most of the funds back. I'll file the promissory note with the court on Monday. That will make it legally binding. What about Kyle? Should we press charges? I still felt conflicted about the appropriate consequences for my brother. That's entirely your decision. The police might take it more seriously now that you have evidence of premeditation and a signed confession of sorts. But pursuing criminal charges is a long process with no guaranteed outcome. After careful consideration and discussion with Noah, we decided to file a formal report with the police, including all the digital evidence Noah had collected. Detective Rivera at the Portland Police Department was significantly more interested in our case now that we had concrete evidence and a partial recovery of funds. "This is excellent work," she said, reviewing Noah's files. "Especially from someone your age." She looked at my son with newfound respect. "Is he going to jail?" Noah asked directly. Detective Rivera glanced at me before answering. "That's difficult to say. Because it was a joint account, and he's returned a significant portion of the money, the district attorney might not prioritize prosecution. But we will investigate, and at minimum, there will be a record of what he did." That seemed fair to me. As much as Kyle had hurt us, I didn't necessarily want him behind bars. I wanted him to make amends, to understand the pain he'd caused, and to never be in a position to hurt us again. The next step was protection. With Jason's help, I filed for a restraining order against Kyle. The judge granted it based on the financial exploitation and the potential for future harm. It felt strange to legally bar my brother from contacting us, but after what he'd done, it was necessary. Then came the process of rebuilding our financial security. I opened a new account at a different bank, one without any history or connection to Kyle. I set up additional security measures, including two-factor authentication and notifications for any withdrawal over $100. The paranoia would fade with time, I hoped, but for now, extra caution felt warranted. With the recovered money, we were able to pay back Laura and rebuild most of our emergency fund. The house down payment would have to wait until Kyle repaid the remaining $13,000, but we were in a much better position than we had been just days ago. Noah seemed to process the experience in his own way. He was quieter than usual, spending time organizing and securing the evidence he'd collected. One evening, I found him deleting files from his Kyle folder. "What are you doing?" I asked, sitting beside him on his bed. "Getting rid of stuff we don't need anymore," he replied. "Detective Rivera has copies of everything important." "How do you feel about everything that happened?" I asked carefully. "With Uncle Kyle?" Noah considered the question. "Sad. And kind of angry still. But also," he hesitated, "also proud, I guess, that I could help." "You did more than help, Noah. You saved us." He shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I just used what I knew about computers. Uncle Kyle wasn't very careful. It was more than that. You were brave and resourceful and determined." I put my arm around his shoulders. "But I want you to know, it's okay to feel sad about Uncle Kyle. He was family. Do you think he'll ever change? Like, really change?" It was a profound question that deserved an honest answer. "I don't know. People can change, but they have to want to. They have to do the hard work themselves. We can't change them." Noah nodded thoughtfully. "Is that why we got the restraining order?" "Because we don't think he'll change. We got it because we need to protect ourselves while he figures out who he wants to be." I squeezed his shoulder. "Maybe someday, if he proves he's different, we can reconsider. But for now, this is what safety looks like for us." The following weeks brought a strange new normal. Kyle made the first scheduled payment on time, deposited directly to an account set up solely for that purpose. He sent an email, not blocked by the restraining order, with a simple message: "I know this doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. I'm getting help." I didn't respond. Words felt insufficient after what had happened. But I didn't delete the email either. Noah gradually returned to his regular activities, though his interest in cybersecurity had clearly been ignited by the experience. His technology teacher, Mr. Patel, took a special interest in Noah's newfound focus, steering him toward ethical hacking and security protocols rather than surveillance techniques. "Your son has remarkable aptitude," Mr. Patel told me during a parent-teacher conference. "But it's important he understands the ethical responsibilities that come with such skills." I couldn't have agreed more. Noah and I had several conversations about privacy, digital boundaries, and the legal implications of his methods in tracking Kyle. While I was grateful for the outcome, I wanted to ensure he understood that emergency situations didn't justify making a habit of invading others' digital spaces. Surprisingly, word of our ordeal spread through our small community. I hadn't intended to share the story widely, but Laura had mentioned it to a few mutual friends, and soon I was receiving calls and texts from people offering support. Some shared similar experiences with family financial betrayal. Others simply wanted to check in or offer help. Michael Hayes, my boss, called me into his office one Friday afternoon about a month after our Seattle confrontation. "Amber, the partners and I have been discussing your situation." He smiled warmly. "We'd like to offer you a promotion to Senior Administrative Coordinator. It comes with a significant salary increase that might help you rebuild your savings more quickly." "That's incredibly generous," I said, genuinely moved. "But I don't want charity." "This isn't charity," Michael assured me. "We've been planning to create this position for months. Your handling of the Kyle situation simply confirmed what we already knew. You're resourceful, determined, and exactly the kind of person we want in a leadership role." The promotion meant an additional $8,000 annually, not enough to replace what Kyle had taken immediately, but enough to accelerate our recovery significantly. I accepted with gratitude. Through it all, Noah remained my rock. He had seen me at my most vulnerable and stepped up in ways I never could have anticipated. Our relationship had subtly shifted, not that he had become the parent or I the child, but we had become partners in a way we hadn't been before. He had earned a new level of respect, and I found myself consulting him more often on decisions that affected our household. 3 months after our confrontation in Seattle, Kyle's second payment arrived on schedule. Attached was a letter, handwritten this time. "I'm 6 weeks sober," it read. "I've been diagnosed with gambling addiction and am working through a program. I know you have no reason to believe me, but I wanted you to know that I'm trying. What I did to you and Noah was unforgivable. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope someday you might believe that I regret it with every fiber of my being." I showed the letter to Noah, who read it carefully. "Do you think he means it?" he asked. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "But I hope he does." Noah nodded. "Me too." That weekend, we did something we hadn't done since before Kyle's betrayal. We went house hunting. Not to buy yet, but just to look, to dream a little, to remind ourselves that our setback was temporary, not permanent. As we walked through a modest 3-bedroom home in a neighborhood with good schools, I watched Noah examining the room that could be his. "What do you think?" I asked. He ran his hand along the windowsill, looking out at the small backyard with its single maple tree. "I like it. It feels safe." "That's what matters most," I agreed. "That we feel safe." And for the first time in months, I truly did. 6 months after our confrontation with Kyle in Seattle, life had found a new rhythm. The acute pain of betrayal had dulled to an occasional ache, appearing only when unexpected reminders surfaced. Kyle had made 5 payments on time, each one arriving with a short update on his recovery. I still didn't respond, but Noah and I read each one together, documenting our progress toward financial restoration. We moved from our old apartment to a slightly larger one in a secure building with a doorman. The rent was marginally higher, but my promotion covered the difference, and the additional security was worth every penny. The new place had a small study that became Noah's computer workshop, complete with a desk I found secondhand and refurbished as a weekend project. The most profound change wasn't in our living situation, but in Noah himself. The quiet, observant boy had grown more confident, more willing to share his thoughts and ideas. His teachers noticed the transformation too. "Noah has really come out of his shell," Mrs. Wilson told me during our spring parent-teacher conference. "He's participating more in class discussions and even volunteered to help with the school's computer security audit." This latter project became a turning point for Noah. The school's technology coordinator, impressed by Noah's skills, which I had carefully explained as an interest in cybersecurity without mentioning the Kyle situation, invited him to help identify vulnerabilities in the school's network. Under proper supervision, Noah discovered 3 significant security flaws that could have compromised student data. "Mom, I found a way to access the grade database," he told me excitedly one evening. Mr. Patel said it was a really serious vulnerability. "They're fixing it because of me." His pride was palpable and well-deserved. More importantly, he was channeling his technical abilities toward protection rather than surveillance. A distinction we had discussed at length. "That's fantastic, Noah," I said, genuinely impressed. "You're using your powers for good." He grinned at the superhero reference. "Mr. Patel says I should consider cybersecurity as a career. There's even summer camps for kids who are interested." The camp he mentioned was expensive, $1,500 for 2 weeks, but it seemed like the perfect opportunity to nurture his talents in a structured, ethical environment. I added it to our financial plan, determined to make it work even if it meant taking on extra hours at the firm. As it turned out, I didn't need to. When the local newspaper ran a small story about Noah's role in improving the school's security, a technology company in Portland reached out with a scholarship offer for the camp. The owner, a woman named Diane Fletcher, had experienced a similar financial betrayal by a family member years earlier. "I was lucky enough to have resources to recover," Diane told me over coffee. "Not everyone is. I believe in supporting resilient families, especially when young people show promise in technology fields." Noah's participation in the school security project led to another unexpected opportunity. His science teacher encouraged him to develop a project for the regional science fair focused on digital security for ordinary people. Noah spent weeks creating a simple application that could detect when too much personal information was being shared online. "It's like a warning system," he explained as he demonstrated the prototype. "It scans what you're about to post and highlights potentially sensitive information, addresses, account numbers, personal identifiers, things that could be used against you." The irony wasn't lost on me that Kyle's carelessness with his digital information had inspired Noah to create a tool that might have prevented our situation had Kyle used it. The project won first place in the junior division, earning Noah recognition and a $500 scholarship bond. The science fair victory brought another change to our lives: community recognition. People I barely knew would approach me at the grocery store or coffee shop. "You're Noah Mitchell's mom, right?" What he did was incredible. Most assumed the science fair project was the extent of his accomplishment, unaware of the real-world investigation that had inspired it. Noah and I had agreed to keep the details of Kyle's betrayal and our recovery of the money private, sharing the full story only with a few trusted friends and family members. Laura remained our staunchest supporter. She had been there through the worst of it and celebrated each milestone in our recovery. When Noah's birthday approached in May, she insisted on hosting a small party at her house. "After everything that kid has been through, everything he's accomplished, he deserves a celebration," she declared. The gathering was modest, but meaningful. A few of Noah's closest friends, my colleagues who had supported us through the crisis, his favorite teachers. As I watched him blow out the candles on his cake, surrounded by people who genuinely cared for him, I felt a profound gratitude that overshadowed the lingering hurt from Kyle's actions. That evening, after the guests had gone and we returned to our apartment, Noah and I sat on our small balcony watching the sunset. "Did you have a good birthday?" I asked. He nodded, fingering the edge of the new laptop case Laura had given him, emblazoned with the logo of his favorite cybersecurity company. "It was the best." "You've been through a lot this year," I said carefully. "More than most kids your age ever experience. How are you feeling about everything now?" Noah considered the question with his characteristic thoughtfulness. I think I'm okay. Better than okay, actually." He looked up at me. "What Uncle Kyle did was terrible. But if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have discovered what I'm good at, what I might want to do with my life." His wisdom continued to astonish me. That's a very mature way of looking at it. Finding the silver lining. "It's not just that," he continued. "I feel different now. Stronger. Like if something bad happens again, I know we can handle it. Together." I reached over and squeezed his hand. "We definitely can." The following week brought another letter from Kyle, this one different from the rest. Inside the envelope was his 6th payment, on time, as usual, but also a formal document. I've legally changed my name back to Kyle Mitchell, the accompanying note read. I'm done hiding from who I am and what I've done. My therapist suggested I focus on making amends where possible and accepting consequences where necessary. I understand if you never want to speak to me again, but I wanted you to know that I'm committed to repaying every cent and to becoming someone worthy of a second chance, even if that chance never comes. I shared the letter with Noah, as had become our custom. What do you think? He asked after reading it. Do you believe him this time? I want to, I admitted. But trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. It takes more than words on paper. Or even money, Noah added wisely. Exactly. It takes consistent actions over time. I folded the letter and returned it to its envelope. For now, we focus on us. On building our future. That future was looking increasingly positive. With Kyle's regular payments, my promotion, and careful budgeting, our savings account was growing again. Not as quickly as before, but steadily enough that I had begun to tentatively look at real estate listings again. One Saturday morning in June, I found Noah studying the housing market on his laptop. What are you researching? I asked, setting a glass of orange juice beside him. Houses under $300,000 in good school districts, he replied without looking up. I've created a spreadsheet to compare property taxes, utility costs, and appreciation potential. I laughed, though I was touched by his initiative. Noah, you don't need to worry about this. I'm the parent. He finally glanced up, his expression serious. I know. But we're a team now, right? You said so yourself. I nodded, acknowledging the truth in his words. We are indeed a team. But I want you to be a kid too. To enjoy being 12, almost 13. I am enjoying it, he insisted. This is interesting to me. It's like a puzzle, finding the best house for the best price in the best location. It's problem solving. I looked over his shoulder at the spreadsheet he'd created. Remarkably sophisticated, with color coding and automatic calculations. My son, the analytical mind. The protector. The problem solver. All right then, partner, I said, pulling up a chair beside him. Show me what you've found. That weekend, we visited 3 properties Noah had identified as promising. None was perfect. One needed significant updates. Another had a longer commute to school. The third had a smaller yard than ideal. But the exercise itself was healing. We were no longer just recovering. We were planning. Moving forward. The final house we visited that day was a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a quiet neighborhood. As we walked through the slightly outdated kitchen, I noticed Noah running his hand along the counter, his expression contemplative. What are you thinking about? I asked. Uncle Kyle, he admitted. I was wondering if he'll ever see where we end up living. The question caught me off guard. Would you want him to? Noah shrugged. I don't know. Sometimes I'm still really angry at him. But sometimes I remember the good stuff too. Like when he taught me to throw a curveball. Or helped me with my science project last year. People are complicated, I said gently. Even the ones who hurt us can have good in them. Do you think someday we might talk to him again? Not now, he added quickly. But maybe, eventually? I considered the question carefully, wanting to be honest without closing doors that Noah might someday want to open. I think that's a decision we can make together, when and if the time feels right. For now, I think the distance is healthy for everyone. It gives us space to heal and Kyle space to work on himself, if he's really committed to that. Noah nodded, satisfied with the answer. I like this house, he said, changing the subject. The kitchen needs updating, but there's a perfect spot for a computer desk in the 2nd bedroom. The practicality of his assessment made me smile. We'll add it to the possibilities list. That night, I received an unexpected email from Detective Rivera. Thought you might want to know, she wrote. Your brother voluntarily came in today to provide a full statement about what he did. He's enrolled in a gambling addiction program and wanted this on record. No charges are being filed per your request, but his statement is now part of the official record. Thought it might give you some peace of mind. I stared at the screen, a complex mix of emotions washing over me. Kyle hadn't mentioned this in his letter. He hadn't done it for show or to earn forgiveness. He had simply done the right thing, knowing I might never even learn about it. Perhaps people could change after all. Not overnight, and not without consistent effort, but gradually, through small choices that eventually formed a different pattern. The next morning, I told Noah about Kyle's statement to the police. "That's good, right?" he asked. "It's a positive sign," I agreed. "Actions speak louder than words." Noah was quiet for a moment. "Maybe for his birthday, we could send a card. Not saying everything's okay, just acknowledging him." The suggestion revealed Noah's compassionate heart, something Kyle's betrayal hadn't managed to damage. "Maybe we could," I agreed. "We'll see how we feel when the time comes." The following weekend, we attended an open house for a property slightly above our current price range, but worth seeing as a benchmark for the future. As we walked up the driveway, Noah suddenly stopped. "Mom," he said, his voice filled with quiet determination. "No matter where we live, we're going to be okay, aren't we?" I looked at my son. This remarkable young person who had faced adult betrayal with courage and ingenuity, who had helped save our future when it seemed lost, who was finding his path in the world partially because of, not despite, the challenges we'd encountered. "Yes, Noah," I replied with absolute certainty. "We are definitely going to be okay." And as we walked together toward the house that might or might not become our future home, I knew it was true. Our foundation wasn't built of bricks or bank accounts. It was built on resilience, mutual trust, and the knowledge that together, we could overcome whatever life threw our way. Have you ever had to deal with a betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you find the strength to move forward? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you found our journey inspiring. Remember that sometimes our greatest challenges reveal strengths we never knew we had. Thank you for listening, and I hope our experience helps you find courage in your own difficult situations.